Hello and welcome. This is Norman. I will be the speaker on this video or presentation, and we're going to be talking about the Run Happy training strategy. This video is meant to provide some guidance, background on how I personally establish training plans for some of people who seek help on how to train to do this sport. But before we start the presentation, I want to take your attention to this corner of the screen where I will let you read it on your own, but basically it states that you assume all risk by following any guidance, instructions, define it in this presentation, and you're always advised to consult a doctor before you start doing any new exercise or workout or sport. So you are responsible for that. Now that that is out of the way, let's move along. Uh, Brief description, brief presentation of myself. My name is Norman. I'm a certified running coach. I got I seeked this certification just for my own benefit, but it I definitely learned a lot from that and complemented the information I received through the certification with my own individual reading, learning, and self training on the sport. And yeah, so I decided to become a coach, and I'm doing this presentation just to provide some feedback or some guidance to any runner out there that is wondering how to establish a training program. And this is specifically for people that has asked for help on how to set their own plans and how to go about it. Just some information here, some background on the where I got the information from. These are the main sources, but as I mentioned before, I have self-trained. I have the knowledge I have acquired for running. It comes from many places, many training, online training platforms, many books I've read, trial and error. Of course, the RRCA training certification, which is the formal or the most formal training that I have. And I try to be as precise as I could on the main sources or sources that you can also refer to in order to understand how we got here, how we established plans and the strategy to follow and the science behind it. Just a few mentions right here on the screen. Jack Daniels running formula. If you've been running for a while, you should know that name. A very famous person, Jack, that have written several books on running and known throughout the running community. Training Essentials by Ultra Running for Ultra Running by Jason Coop. If you're into ultra running, I took a few things from that book and worth the read. Endurance Training and Racing by Dr. Philip Maffetone. I do use a simple calculation that he established on for heart rate, so we can start developing your conversational pace, your easy pace. I like to use that tool as I will explain later because it's easy method, conservative, and it's a good starting point overall. Of course, from Randy Aceta and Ambi Burfoot, they have developed some pace tools. I will explain those later. And also, if you've been running for a while, Runner's World is out there. Again, organization that publish many things, and specifically from them, I would like to refer to these two books: Complete Book of Running, Big Book of Half Marathon and Marathon Training. I will put a link at the end of this presentation or on the forum that this video slash presentation is finally published, so you can go and access and get a copy of those if you want. Learn on your own a little bit more and go more in depth on what I present here. So the training strategy, again, this is based on my own preference on how I establish them. I call the training strategy or the training program Run Happy, and but it just follows modify periodization program, which is illustrated by the pyramid on the left side of the screen. As many programs, this has four phases, complemented with tapering or peak and recovery. The programs, I separate them in four phases, but those phases also I try to stick to 4 to 5 weeks on each phase. I will explain why later also. And the last bullet here on this presentation, it's I incorporate a heart rate based on Phil Maffeton's views and research on aerobic training and how to establish easy pace or conversational pace. I use that as a starting point and a conservative way, a safe way of implementing your easy pace that you will learn about it in this presentation or other presentations later on. I didn't create this figure. I have a source here that I also will include later on the references at the end of this video or the forum it is published. And what I'm going to be doing throughout the presentation is trying to answer some of the questions that might come up. If you return back to the previous slide, as I mentioned, it has 4 to 5 weeks per phase. Why do I like that? Because I have learned by training on this sport and other sports that 4 to 5 weeks will get you to a plateau. Not for everyone, not at the same time, but it will eventually happen. And what happens to that plateau? It's, let's say, a phenomenon where some adaptation occurs. Your rate of achievement or improvement it is diminished. Of course, you get a plateau there, which is illustrated by this flat line on the screen. And similar to rate of achievement, diminishing returns start to occur, so you will not progress as much. And if you are doing the same thing over and over, you're gonna get some overtraining. You could get overtraining. Again, this doesn't apply in the same way to everyone. Everybody's different, everybody's training program will be different, and you will need to figure out what's best for you as you go through your training program. But basically, let's turn our attention to the graph on the left. Plateau. What is happening at the plateau? It's all that I have described before, and it is what it is illustrated in this bucket right here. You were progressing, your performance was improving up to a point, doing a certain type of training, and you get to a time where you not don't progress any further. And you'll have to add external factors, changes in your training program in order to break that plateau. Not everybody gets out of the plateau in the same way, not everybody progresses the same way. So that will definitely vary between person to person. So I have another illustration here on the right side and showing different steps on why you need to change with a certain frequency. If you see here, there's a plateau occurring for two of the conditions listed on this graph, which are dietary and eating efforts towards goals. The red one, it's no goal or motivation towards it. So basically, that's different the descriptions of the different color lines you see there. The thing is that at this time, there's a plateau occurring. Similarly, clearly here you will see another plateau occurring for the three conditions described, and another one right here at this spot for these two conditions. So what does that mean? That means that it for this training at this training progress, the performance was stuck at this time, also around this time, and at this time as well. So how do you break on that? How do you break out of that plateau? That is represented in this box right here. They added a change and intensity breaks through plateau. Adding change. That's basically it. In my case, in the training program, if you look at the pyramid, that's why that's when I changed the phase. I moved from one phase to the other. And that's why I try to make those phases last around 4 to 5 weeks. But again, that's all dependent on the runner, on the person, their commitment to the training, and the effort being put into the training, many factors. But that's one of the questions I try to answer, trying to anticipate from the viewer. Now, why I'm using the Maffetone heart rate formula. First of all, I start by explaining what the MAF is, maximum aerobic function, as you will read on the screen. Basically, getting the body to use the aerobic system as much as possible, or the use of oxygen, improving the use of oxygen as energy, and in your workouts, in your overall use of energy. The formula is very simple. Heart rate, it's 180 minus the age, and that's basically the heart rate you will use as a starting point to figure out what your easy pace is in your conversational pace. That's the pace that you will use for most of your runs, for most of your mileage, especially at the first phase when you're building the base, which we will talk briefly about. The what are some of the benefits of it? Basically, it's easy to use. No need to determine a max heart rate as other training strategies do. It's compatible to conversational pace or easy pace. It's conservative and potentially prevents overtraining and unwanted injuries. I have mentioned that several times already. It's a safe approach to run at a low heart rate or a good heart rate for your age, so you are not exceeding your capabilities at the moment. And yeah, that's why I combine heart rate, Maffeton's heart rate, with statistical pace charts. When the statistical pace charts come in, once you have got your body used to that mileage, to the stress caused by running and the pounding you get on your body through the sport, which is it's moderate. What are the training pace charts? So once you identify the easy pace, you use that throughout all of your phases, but eventually you will find a place where you are comfortable with a distance and you might do different workouts. And that's where these pace charts come in. These pace charts, and this one specifically, developed by Ambi Burfoot, and I will put links to where you can get to them at the end. So they developed these charts, taking into account information and data from many runners, and put them up together and came up with some recommended distances and the appropriate pace or their estimate of what a person under certain condition could achieve. And that's what this table does. It identifies a distance right here. And basically, what this chart is telling you is that for a person that's able to complete a 5K in 14 minutes or a pace of 4:31, this person could do full marathon, 26.2 miles. I'm sorry for covering the number, at a time of 2:16, 2 hours 16 minutes, or a pace of 5:13. Is this true for everyone? No, it's not true for everyone. If you haven't got the body used to that long distance, you will not be able to do it. You'll need to get your body used to the distance, get used to that pace. Once you're able to do that after many years of training, I would say, then these values become accurate. But once you identify that easy pace, conversational pace, as you see here, in this case it's 5:52, then you could use these other paces as a guide to establish your workouts. And we're going to talk about workouts as well. You can use workouts that are called long intervals and short intervals, and those will be explained at another video, but we're going to talk about them briefly here. But yeah, this is what those space charts do for you. Once you identify an easy pace using the heart rate formula, you definitely confirm that's a good starting point for you. You are able to run a couple of miles at that pace. Let's say you achieve a pace, an easy pace, comfortable pace of 6:43, then you can start mixing up and adding different type of workouts. And you could be doing tempo runs at 5:34, for example, And the same thing, long intervals, short intervals, 5K races, attempting a pace of 5:09, and that's how I enter this or use these pace charts in the training. So now I mentioned max heart rate in the previous slides, and I just wanted to clarify what was that. And I'm showing this for reference only. This is an example of a training or how you can set up your workouts based on the max heart rate. In this case, you would have to determine your maximum heart rate, and from that maximum heart rate, you would establish workouts at different intensities, as I'm highlighting in there. And for example, if you're gonna do an easy run or conversational pace, this is the area where your workout will fall, and it's easy, straightforward. But I don't use it. I don't like it because you never know for sure what your maximum heart rate is. Your maximum heart rate could go above 200 beats per minute, and if you establish your run based on that high value, you may be working too hard most of the time. Again, if you have a heart rate of 200 and you decide to work in the 80 90 range, so that means your workout will be hard. You will be working at almost your maximum heart rate, and it is difficult to do. And I just prefer the safe approach and starting from the easy runs, and from that developing into longer workouts or harder workouts in a safe way, in a safe manner, instead of trying to determine that max heart rate in a certain in a certain point in time where your condition might not be the best. So that's but I wanted to bring that up just as an example. Now going back again to why training based on heart rate, Maffeton's formula combined with statistical pace chart versus max rate guidance. And we are just going to go through the bullets. The pace charts are based on statistical data from runners at different level of fitness. So that works as a starting point to start. So you could start establishing workouts with different pace levels depending on your current condition. The pace charts provide a clear pace target for each type of workout, and that's more consistent than looking at the heart rate. You, depending on many conditions within your own body and your health, the heart rate will be variable from day to day, and so you will not be exposing your body to the same type of workout if you look at the heart rate only and not at the pace charts. The third bullet here, calculating the max heart rate. So you'll have to do an extreme effort, and you may not be really achieving your max heart rate in one run. It's difficult to do. It's hard. Yeah, I added a note here. Specificity of training is very important. That doesn't take out the fact that you need to train hard. You need to train fast eventually. Heart rate, you will be using heart rate at the beginning, as I mentioned, but you're going to be transitioning to those pace charts, and the pace chart will give you guidance on what kind of speed you should be doing, you're capable of doing, and you should be targeting during your training. So, going back to the pyramid, I put it here because now I'm going to be talking about base, strength, speed, and the peak phases. And we're going to be expanding a little bit on each one. Base training, and I put a few bullets and pictures that came out during the PowerPoint build-up of this presentation. The base training, in this case, in the Run Happy training program, the first pace, and we're going to do a lot of miles, and they're going to be focused on the easy pace, and we're going to use that field marathon. I suggest using that as a starting point, as to come up with a range of heart rate, and from that heart you will run at that heart rate, and you will stick to the heart rate until you're comfortable with that, with running with a specific pace. That's something very individual. You will have to figure out which is your easy pace, and from that later on expand to other type of workouts using the pace charts. On the base training, it is common to add a specific leg strength training. Again, is as you are doing a lot of miles at an easy pace, strengthening the muscles in another way or using another type of exercise. It is good and recommended. Many people do it. Another fact of this base training, it can be the longest of the phases, although that's not, I wouldn't say that's always the case and not my strategy, but it is common the longest phase. And so you can adapt to many miles or to your race distance target. And yeah, it can take you a while to get there. And another fact is the recommended maximum amount of miles is 500. Again, not something I would recommend. Not for a beginning, a runner that is beginning the training program. But yeah, that's the facts of what the base training looks like. In my case, as I mentioned, Run Happy Training Program, since like to flip the training phase every 4 to 5 weeks, I will be very difficult to get 500s within that time range. But anyway, that's a summary of the different workouts or training you might do in the base training. Again, in this slide, I'm just trying to answer potential questions that might come up. Why so long, so many miles at the 500 miles that we saw before at an easy pace? Get you used to that distance, and you will be developing your aerobic system as we will explain. And yeah, your body has to get used to that distance first. And so before you can start adding speed to it and potentially leading to injuries. So some notes, a few notes here from Jack Daniels, how you see in the slide in the presentation. The body reacts to stress in two instances: acute reactions and repeated chronic exercise. What is the one we are looking at here is the repeated chronic exercises. And it has many benefits, and that's part of the reason why we run at an easy pace and as most of the miles at that pace. It develops your muscles, make them stronger, improves the blood flow, the efficiency, as I mentioned before. You get used to it. You use less energy, or you use energy more efficient. And some other consequences is that your resting heart rate decreases, your lower body fat, of course. This type of exercise, easy runs and low intensity, will burn more fat, will use oxygen for fuel, and so on. And most importantly, the last bullet right here, developing the aerobic system. As I mentioned before, that's when you are using oxygen to create energy. And you use this system when you are going to 5Ks and above. Anything below that, you're going to be using the anaerobic system where you use more carbohydrates for fuel. And yeah, we will explain that later. But that's why we run so many miles at an easy pace. More data supporting that strategy. And we'll start with the table on the right side, right here. This is a representation of which system you use based on time. As I mentioned before, you have the anaerobic system and aerobic system. I mentioned the importance of developing the aerobic system. Why? If you're doing long runs or races of 5Ks and above, you will be using the aerobic system mostly. If you remember the pace chart, there was a point in there that said that you could complete a 5K in 14 or 15 minutes. That's at this level. That's if you are new to running, that's quite fast. It's very rare for somebody to do that. But even at that, somebody that is well trained and very fast, they're using already 85 of their energy coming from aerobic system. And if your plan is going beyond that into 10Ks, half marathon, and full marathons, you will be using the aerobic system mostly. That's why developing that through long runs, easy pace, building that efficiency will be better for you for this type of runs or races. And now shifting to the left, additional details on why it is good to train at an easy pace for long. And in this case, we're talking about muscles. You have two types of muscles: slow twitch, fast twitch muscles. The slow twitch muscles, type 1, they're fully aerobic. That's how they work. And they're helpful in maximal pace. So you're not going the at your most at the fastest speeds you can go. That's not how you use the type 1 muscles. And as said before, if you're running beyond those 30 minutes or beyond 10 minutes, I should say, that's where the aerobic system kicks in. You will be using these slow muscles or slow twitch muscles for the majority of the time or to get the effort to move your body for those races. And then there are fast twitch muscles, and they're key. There are two type on that one, type 2A and type 2B. The type 2B are anaerobic. These are helpful on fast speeds or maximal pace, as it says there. Um, and the type 2A, very important, they are convertible. So that means that they can be employed whether you're using the anaerobic or aerobic system, but you can train those muscles and to make them more efficient for long runs or longer runs, longer than 10 minutes in this case, to aid you or to aid the muscles, the type 1 slow twitch muscles, which are using the aerobic system. So again, that these are just benefits of running long at an easy pace. You develop your aerobic system and you train those type 2A convertible muscles. So, we explain why the base phase is important and why those type of workouts or long distances and many miles of running are important. In this case, we're going to do strength phase. We do additional mileage, additional easy runs, of course. We can do hill training to develop your muscles in a different way. We can do what I call speed workouts. Those are sprints and similar. It will make you work your muscles in a different way. Fartlek, this is again another type of workout. And let's read this sentence here. Those are basically time intervals at speeds faster than easy pace. Simple. And tempo. I don't usually use tempo here, but it is found in several programs to use tempo at this phase. I prefer to use tempo main when I'm getting close to a target race, but in this case, it can be employed on a strength phase. And the tempo, as it says there, is a race pace simulation. It is close to your target race. If you're training to a marathon, it's a pace close to that. Then you have the speed phase. The speed phase is when you are going to be going definitely faster than a tempo run and faster than a long runs or easy runs. And think about 5K speed, 10K speed, and that varies from person to person and their capabilities. But going over what we do on the speed phase, more easy miles, yes, there will be in every phase. You're going to do long intervals. So those are specific workouts that target to do a fast pace between 800 and 2000 meters. And short intervals that it targets to do the fastest pace on those pace charts that we talked about before. And but they do it on the target is to complete those intervals in ranges of 200 to 600 meters. And again, other workouts included in the Run Happy modified periodization or periodized program is race pace simulation and tempo runs. I like to do that on the speed phase too. And specifically when we're getting close to a target race, so I can test. So you could test how you're doing, is how you're able to hold a target pace and kind of predict your capability for race day. Now, another question right here, very important question, trying to predict what will come up during the review of this video. Why strength and fast interval training? Very simple. We have to get used to those speeds. We got to get the body used to it and test it. So when it comes time to perform, we are definitely able to do it. And again, that's what says right here, adaptation. And in Jack Daniels' words, the system you stress is the system you improve. So, yeah, if you want to run fast, you got to try to go faster. If you want to go long, you got to try to go long and improve those type 2A muscle. You improve lactate threshold, increase the aerobic capacity, and yeah, overall, just getting the body used to faster speeds. And that eventually will improve your easy pace, which will improve all other paces as well. Improving your easy pace, it's basically key for all of the other paces. So you're able to hold to those efforts as long as it is desired for the target race or target distance. There was that pyramid that we saw. There's a part called peak, which is the top of the pyramid, which includes taper and recovery. So taper, it's specifically the last 2 or 3 weeks before target race, target run, where you're gonna do a maximum effort. Personal, it should be a personal effort and for you and your current condition. But basically, the taper includes similar workouts as all of the other previous phases. The very most likely similar workouts as the speed phase. However, it is reduced. The volume or the amount of miles, it is reduced by 60% and 30% on the last 2 weeks in preparation of a race or, as I mentioned before, a target run. It could be a target run that you're trying to do to you're finishing this program, let's say, and you want to test your 5K race and race pace, and so you go for it. And recovery. So let's switch now to the other part of the peak phase of the pyramid. Recovery is a period after major effort in which it can be incorporated other non-running specific sports, strength training, core biking, and rest. So after you do a maximum effort for a target race, basically you take a break or switch the workouts you're doing or the type of exercise you need to give. It is recommended that you give your body a break from running, and that's what the recovery means. Taking some time off from it. It doesn't mean you have to stop doing everything. You just have to switch it up, take a break. Standard guidance is that for a race of 3 miles or a 5K, that you rest 1 day per mile. The same that goes all the way to a marathon distance. If you're running a marathon, it's 26 miles. That you should take it easy or rest for 26 days. If you definitely run at your maximal pace for that distance. Now, putting all of that together, we talk about the phases. This is the base. This is the strength phase, and this is the speed and the peak phase. Now, starting with the phase number one, right here. As I mentioned before, or we covered before, it is where you do easy runs and long miles and an easy training schedule. Again, this is for a week, but this can be expanded to 4 or 5 weeks. They're all easy runs for the most part in this training schedule, just for the ease of presenting the information. This would be split, of course, or expanded into 4 or 5 weeks. But a common strategy is to do 3 easy runs a week, as you see here. What the medium, short, and long means, that will vary for you, but medium, it's a set amount of miles. Short is a little bit less than the medium, and long would be the most amount of miles you're going to be running that week. So this could be, your medium could be 5 miles, your easy run could be 3 miles, your short run, and your long run could be, let's say, 8 miles. That's it. And this is a simplified version of what the training program would look like. I will complement this with leg strength training and other simple workouts like pickups and similar. But yeah, this is for the ease of presentation. Going to phase two, which was strength training. So, how you go about it? Easy runs are available here again and will be available in every phase. If they are very important, they'll always be important. Let's switch and just focus on the middle here on Thursdays, according to this chart. Midweek, as presented on the table, that's their workouts for strength training. In this case, I just put three examples: strides and sprints, as well as hills. And the hills could be, for example, running up hills for 1 or 2 minutes at a fast pace, recovering from it a couple of minutes maybe. And of course, this needs to be preceded by a proper warm up, and then afterwards needs to be complemented with a good cool down. And strides and sprints as well. That's just fast running. A sprint is going as fast as you go for 50 meters or so. And yeah, that's how you build the strength program. And again, this would be expanded 4 or 5 weeks, doing similar workouts throughout that phase before you switch it up to phase three. And phase three is the speed phase where you start looking at the long intervals and short intervals. So I'm here again focusing on the middle of the table. The long intervals, as I mentioned before, it is a specific pace for your condition that you're going to be establishing, and the workout could be 10-minute warm up, steady 1 mile, and then you kick in the long intervals, which could be a couple of intervals of 2,000 meters, a couple of intervals at 1,000 meters, followed by a cool down, and then that would be expanded into 2 or 3 weeks for that phase. And then you would jump into short interval bars for another 2 or 3 weeks to complete in this case, 4 to 6 weeks of training for this phase. And then, as you saw before, short interval bars are about 200 meters to 800. So a simple workout would be again a warm up with a couple of miles at an easy pace, followed by, let's say, three intervals at 400 meters, followed by six intervals, 200 meters, for this pace that you're capable of and recommended pace according to those pace charts. And what about the pace phase four? Again, as I mentioned before, it will include similar workouts as on the previous phases. In this case, I'm pointing to those two areas because, as I mentioned before, long intervals, short intervals are preparing you to go faster. Tempo runs are testing your condition to see if you can meet your target pace or if you need to consider your target race pace. The only difference from the phase four to the previous phases is that you are going to be reducing the volume, so the amount of miles you're running in preparation for a race. That means that if you were running 100 miles on phase three on each week, though this the second to last week before a race, you should be running no more than 60 miles and no more than 30 miles before your race on the last week of training. That's the taper. And beyond that, it comes recovery, which I don't have a line specifically here for that. But the recovery is quite simple, as I explained before. Just take a day off per mile of the race distance that you participating in, and you can mix it up with that with some other type of workouts, another type of sport, taking into consideration the potential impact those alternate activities may have on your legs. And that's it. That's how I recommend you establish a training program. The approach, it's, as you saw in the presentation, to start safe with your easy pace, develop yourself, and then work towards faster paces using as a guide, as a starting point, those pace charts, and from there, test and define, identify your capabilities, your condition, and train according those paces or on the different workouts I presented. This presentation will be complemented with a couple of other videos showing what the workouts are, giving more details on what a workout look like for all of the phases, as well as video in other relevant topics for running. That's it for now. Thank you for watching and hope this is of good use to you.